John Terry has been charged by the Crown Prosecution Service.
Due to stand trial in July on charges of racial abuse.
Charge of racially abusing a fellow player.
In February, Chelsea's John Terry was stripped of the England captaincy after being charged with racially abusing an opponent on the pitch. Although later cleared of this charge by a court, that wasn't English football's only racism allegation last season. Liverpool striker Luis Suarez was banned by the Football Association for racially abusing another player. I'm Clarke Carlisle, and I've been a professional footballer for 16 years. I'm also the chairman of the Players' Union.
Nobody should be abused in their workplace.
Last season, I felt ashamed of my industry. I thought we'd done so much to eradicate racism from the sport. But then it's kind of like, wow, what the hell's going on? Is there actually a problem with racism in our game? So I went on a journey to find out if football is racist. I talked to some big names in the game.
Oh, I've had all sorts. Hang yourself, go back to Africa, sand nigger, coon, wog.
To me, racism is racism.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I came across problems at the bottom and top of football.
Because everyone knows the stories. Everyone says, oh, you're not going to make it because you're brown. Everyone says it to you.
Well, I think that white managers are given longer when you get a job.
Right.
Longer to fail.
I travelled overseas and witnessed stuff I'd never seen before. But the biggest revelation for me was on my own doorstep.
The abuse was all around you, Clarke.
Yeah.
And nobody did a thing. Nobody did a thing.
I'm learning every day. Every person that I talk to is opening my eyes, opening my mind to a completely different side of life.
I've been playing football for nearly 20 years now. I've played across all 4 divisions of the top divisions in England, and I can honestly say that the colour of my skin has never been a hindrance to me. I have never experienced any form of racism. I thought we'd done so much to eradicate racism from the sport. But then the Luis Suarez incident and then the allegation so soon after it against John Terry, I was kind of like, wow, what the hell's going on? Is there actually a problem with racism in our game?
You noticed that. You knew that. Yeah, and grapes.
My children are too young to have heard of racism, but I've never even discussed race at home.
It's not been prevalent for us, is it?
No, I don't know, because we don't maybe talk about it that much, but then if you think about it, our children are mixed race. But I remember one of my friends saying that there are any mixed race people in their school, and that kind of took me aback, because I don't even really think of them as mixed race. I don't even think of them as white. I don't think of them as anything. They're just my babies. I don't really like labelling them like that.
Well,
it's a strange one.
That's exactly it.
Their mixed race is like Lancashire versus Yorkshire.
But that's exactly it, and that's how I want it to be. I don't want it to be an issue.
I don't think that it's an issue. They're just beautiful, whatever.
My job means that I'm often away from my family home in Yorkshire. I'm currently playing for Northampton Town in the English 4th Division.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to play across all 4 divisions now. As chairman of the Players' Union, I think that's fantastic, because that means that I can now have an empathy with every player across every level.
I'm trying to find out if my profession has serious problems with racism. First stop is my teammates. I've never suffered any racism in the game, so am I the odd one out?
So fellas, talk to me. Have you experienced racism in your careers?
I think, I don't know what it is, but players-wise, I've never had any problems. It's the fans once, I heard a comment in the crowd. I was only quite young, I think about 18, something I heard, and it was sort of like, you speak to the referee wasn't too fussed at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were to do that now, if you would mention anything to the referee, if they would react. I don't think at our level they would be overly keen.
When I was younger, I went and I signed for a Lithuanian club, so I experienced racism to the highest degree. I mean, my first pre-season game, the chants were zigga, 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 shoot the fucking nigger. Here, I signed for Northampton, and we had a striker here, and funny enough, he was playing Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest had a black back four at this time, and their left back came up to me and said he's called me a black so-and-so.
Yeah.
And he said I need to sort him out. So as we was going in, the striker pulled me aside and said, you know what, B, I did say it, but it was the heat of the moment and I said it, and I'm apologising to you because I have the mutual respect for you. And I said, I don't really want to catch you say that again.
If a player was racist himself, he wouldn't get away with it in the change room these days, because obviously his teammates wouldn't allow it. Obviously we've got big characters here, you'd get told, wouldn't you?
It was interesting that the two teammates that I spoke to who were black both had personal experiences of racism within the game, which in itself says something. You know, if my experiences have been the exception, then I've been very fortunate.
All good dressing rooms in my career have been built around a strong bond between teammates. But last season, club loyalties and the issue of racism came head to head. When John Terry and Luis Suarez were accused of racially abusing a
They should never have been away.
I want to find out how Liverpool supporters have been influenced by their club's strong defence of Luis Suarez.
Hey, mate. It's been a while, hasn't it?
I'm off back to one of my old clubs, Queen's Park Rangers, where Liverpool are playing.
How you doing? You okay? I see you everywhere.
Thanks.
No worries. Cheers. How you doing? You okay?
From the off, Liverpool supporters get behind their striker. So what do they make of the punishment handed out to him?
As a Liverpool fan, do you think that Luis Suarez 8-match ban was fair?
I don't think it was fair as a Liverpool fan because we've had other cases like this.
Yeah.
And nothing's been done about it, and 8 matches I think was too much.
It was one word against another, to be honest with you, and there was no conclusive evidence.
There's an argument between obviously him and everyone. It's just been blasted up by the media to make him look badder than what he is, like make him look worse than what he is.
It was probably necessary for the good of the game, I should imagine.
And how did you think about Liverpool and how Liverpool as a club acted?
I thought we could have handled it a lot better, but at the end of the day, they've got to back their player. The guy's made a mistake and he's been hung out to dry for it. Yeah. And Liverpool have backed their player, which, rightly or wrongly, that's how it is.
Happens.
You know,
that's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the biggest point that came across to me tonight from the Liverpool fans was that they do believe that racism is an issue that needs to be tackled, but their stance is born out of the sense of injustice. You know, they believe that the issue should be tackled, but they just don't believe that Luis Suarez, given the circumstances, was the right person to use to set that precedent. They want to look after their superstar striker. That's what I think.
Both Kenny Dalglish and Liverpool have since said that they should have handled the situation differently and stated that they are fully committed to fighting racism. But I've been left wondering whether club tribalism could be at risk of encouraging racism within football. Did Liverpool's strong backing of Luis Suarez actually send a message to some of its fans that racist abuse is all right? As a big tweeter, I've discovered that one former Premiership star, Stan Collymore, has collected lots of racist tweets directed at Patrice Evra, the target of Luis Suarez's racial slur.
These are absolutely disgusting. Stand with Suarez. Evra is a nigger. Hashtag fact. There's plenty more. Fuck you, you fucking black piece of shit. It's not Suarez's fault that your mother got fucked by a nigger. Just can't catch my breath that people will put these on open broadcast to the world. Never mind think them on their own to begin with. It's loads one after the other. Evra the monkey. Evra's a black monkey. Frightening. You know, you look at the identities of some of the guys here and there could be some trolling going on because there are some who don't seem to have any affiliation whatsoever. But there are a lot of LFCs in their handles, never mind just the hashtags. So you can see that people are Liverpool fans.
Stan is a former England international and used to play for Liverpool himself. These days, he's a leading sports broadcaster.
Call Collymore live from Wembley Stadium. Well, of course, as always, you can tweet me at Stan Collymore.
Just before he goes on air for a major final at Wembley, I ask about the racist messages directed at him on Twitter by trolls and a small minority of Liverpool fans.
So your personal Twitter experience, what kind of abuse have you come across on there?
Oh, I've had all sorts. Hang yourself, go back to Africa, go back to sand nigger, coon, wog. At its worst, I mean, it was 5 or 6 racist messages a day, and I think there are a lot of people just looking for a reaction.
How do you feel Liverpool's stance as a club over the Suarez incident influenced their fans about the issue?
The Suarez affair that was dealt with awfully, I think, by Liverpool, by the media department, by Kenny Dalglish, by the club, by the players in general. We'll remember the T-shirts and the support. How many Liverpool fans, particularly again of a young age, were then more likely to call people that were dissenting, like me, that played for the club, a coon, nigger, etc., etc. And that is the responsibility that a football club has. If you put yourself out there to not look at the issue and address the issue, people will follow you, to the point that if a manager of a high-profile Premier League club said, go and jump off a cliff, you would get certain football fans that would take that literally. Liverpool isn't a racist city as far as I'm concerned, nor is the football club. But again, you leave the door open to any ambiguity and lots of things can follow.
Do you think other clubs would have acted in a similar way to Liverpool when it came to protecting one of their prized assets?
They would have all acted the same. If you've got £20 million worth of asset that may be saleable in 2 or 3 years' time, or is playing particularly well, when you're sat in a boardroom and the issue of race is there and the issue of pounds, shillings and pence between, you know, financial people, the unfortunate circumstances that came out of the Suarez affair is that racism wasn't the ultimate issue. It became financial and an asset towards the club. And until that changes, we're never going to get across the finishing line.
Stan's words struck me, especially because I thought that racism wasn't really an issue in the game anymore. But when he's saying that for the top clubs it's not right at the top of their list of priorities, that's a really disturbing conclusion.
I've played for lots of different clubs over the years, and I want to know why the stands are so much less multicultural than the pitch in professional football. Many clubs are based in areas with large ethnic communities, but I want to find out why very few of these turn out to watch their local clubs. I've been invited on a day out with some Wolverhampton Wanderers fans, known as the Punjabi Wolves.
I thought it might be a bit sombre, you know, because the boys have been relegated. It's a proper party today.
Founded by some of Wolverhampton's Sikh population, these guys are a rare example of an ethnic community following their local club to matches.
It's like a Do you think that clubs should do more to embrace their ethnic minority communities?
Wolverhampton is one of many cities that just simply isn't tapping into the market, which has meant that the public relations opportunities and also I think the commercial opportunities, and I think not just Wolverhampton Wanderers but I think football clubs across the board don't capitalise on that.
Have you experienced any kind of racial abuse while you've been not just a part of this supporters club but in and around football grounds?
In football, yes, unfortunately I have. A few years ago when we were in the Championship, we was playing Cardiff City.
Right.
This is when Michael Chopra was at Cardiff.
Yeah, because he's of Indian heritage as well, isn't he?
He is, and unfortunately a chap sitting behind us shouted, F off Chopra, you half packy sort of thing.
You do always get it when you do attend matches. Sometimes it's not actually thrown at you, but you can just tell there is something there that race is still an issue there.
Okay.
But there has been other times where we have been to places and the race, oh, you are this or you are that.
Do you think it's this this covert racism, you know, this under the surface racism that means that there aren't as many black and ethnic minority fans as there could be at matches?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Some of my own family members, my aunties and uncles who obviously have never been to a football game, don't know what happens at a football game, you know, be safe, oh, don't get into any trouble, you know what the hooligans are like and stuff.
You know, 20, 30 years of reputation where the game, you know, was seen to be associated with hooliganism and racism.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, that stains on people's minds.
Today was fantastic. What an enjoyable day. It's just a perfect example of how to improve diversity and relationships, you know, between different cultures under this banner of football. After some 20, 30 years of racism and hooliganism that has been right throughout football, the memories of those, you know, last long in their community. It's still hard to break those barriers down and get the younger generations and more of the ethnic minority communities onto the terraces.
I wasn't even born, or was only a kid, when racism and hooliganism tarnished English football in the 70s and 80s. Football matches could be very violent. Far-right racist groups were part of the terraces. Black players were a minority and suffered shocking racial abuse. I've always been aware of this history in football, but know very little about it. Delving into the game's dark past has stirred up something very close to home.
Hello. Hey, Dad. How you doing? I'm good, thanks, Dad. I'm good to see you. Good to see you.
Back then, my dad used to watch football on the terraces. He's always loved the game and has followed my career very closely.
Do you remember that one, Clarke, from the Blackpool?
Brilliant, brilliant, yeah.
Yeah.
This is when I made the big time. First professional contract at Blackpool, £200 a week. Get in there.
Once a semi-pro player, he never succeeded in making the step up to the professional game. Today he's a school caretaker.
When Clarke made it as a footballer, actually made his first appearance as a professional, I couldn't have been a prouder parent. I can remember seeing it play for England in the 21s. You know, it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see him do that.
He never talked to me about going to football, and he never once took me to a match when I was growing up. I want to know why.
Did you experience any kind of racism then, or racial abuse growing up, Dad?
Of course, yeah. I experienced racism quite a bit, yeah. But it was something I never talked about. I never told anybody about it or talked to anybody about it. You know, I just endured it like a lot of us did. For instance, I couldn't take you on football matches in those days.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, Dad. Is that why you didn't bring me to a game?
Very much so, very much so.
What were some of the terms that you used to hear on the terraces or when you were getting abused? Like?
Oh, Clarke, do you really want me to say?
Yeah, you know, this is real, Dad, you know, this is what you had to hear and put up with.
Oh, you'd hear them all, nigger, black bastard, you know, you wog. The abuse was all around you, Clarke.
Yeah.
And again, this is the reason why I wouldn't, you know, take you on a match. And it used to upset me, hearing the players getting the abuse and that, you know. That's just how it was in those days, you know, going to football matches.
Even, it wasn't just when he was watching matches, Clarke, it was when he was playing them.
Yeah.
As a footballer, he used to get racial abuse as well.
Really? Yeah, we got racial abuse. You know,
from players?
From playing. Yeah, I've been headbutted, kicked, you know, stamped on. That has actually happened to me in football matches. And the ref could hear this. My coaches who were with me could, you know, who were with me could hear it, but nobody did a thing. Nobody did a thing. You know, that almost put me off football for life.
If I came up against that on the pitch, I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
Do you feel that your race played a part in your progression in football, Dad? Blatantly, it stood against you.
I had wondered about it, and I had thought, I wonder what would have happened and what would have become of me, and you know, would I have actually ended up playing professional football? You know, it didn't happen for me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's that's the way life goes sometimes, isn't it?
I think there's a part of you personally that doesn't want to think that it's because of that.
Yeah.
That it could have blocked a career in football, because that was your dad's dream.
Yeah.
He left school believing that he would be a professional footballer.
That's what I wanted to do, wasn't it? That's all I wanted to do. What's happening? Stirring things up in me as I'm talking about this stuff.
Whispering as I... Definitely the most striking things is that, you know, he's been so alone all this time. The fact that my dad did that without passing on his grievances and his apprehensions to me, I think that's a phenomenal thing. You know, that's enabled me to grow and develop without preconceived fears and apprehensions, whether they're still there or not. You know, but my mind was free to focus on my own ability instead of what potential barriers there may be. No, I've always known that racism has been a problem in society, but never been more aware of it than I am today.
Unlike my dad's era, today roughly a quarter of all professional players in England are black or mixed race. But I've hardly ever played with or against anyone with Pakistani, Indian or Bangladeshi blood. We have a big population with this background in England, but only 2 players have ever reached the top division. To try and understand why this is, I'm visiting Luton, home of a large Pakistani community.
Come on, Abu!
I've come to watch a local club coached by Butch Fazal.
Well, we're just watching Butch's under-14 side here. 100% South Asian players, and they are wiping the floor with this poor team from Dunstable. And not usual
Not like usual youth team football where it's just the bigger team, the stronger team, because they're just playing pure soccer. The composure of the kids in defence, I'm learning from. And I think it's 6-0 already. Asians can play football.
Play it, Raheem. Relax, Zane. Relax, Zane. Good boy, good boy.
For the last 30 years, Butch has been campaigning more than anyone to get more Asian players onto the books of professional clubs. He has brought along 2 of his former star players who haven't made the grade. Before injury put the brakes on his career, Husnain Shah went for a trial at a professional club.
Straight after the whole trial, my dad was having a chat with one of the guys who's obviously scouting. There's a black guy who spoke to my dad, and he said to him, I've been specifically employed to not take on Asian people.
What?
As soon as I heard that, and you know, my heart started beating fast, like that's the door's closed for me now. And everyone knew that I had talent. I mean, I used to be top goal scorer every season. I scored like 86 goals, 84 goals in a season, Butch. I remember I used to dominate the field.
84 goals in a season is just incomprehensible. Have you been given a fair crack of the whip?
Every time we gave him my chance.
You're the skipper of the county team?
Skipper of the county team. And I just feel like I've been like the short straw. Like I was that person that never got the chance to get anywhere.
I find it quite unbelievable that the captain of a county team has not gotten a chance at a club. It's unheard of. Virtually, if I go back through my county team and the county teams that I played against, I can tell you that virtually every single player was at a club. I find that utterly ludicrous that the captain of a county team you've not had a way in at any club.
I've been captain for almost everything I played for.
Right, I have always been of the thought, until I started this documentary, that if you were good enough, you would get your chance. How can that be true and then Asians be discriminated against? How does that work?
Racism.
That's all it is?
That's what I truly believe. Is just what you just said now. It all comes down to racism then. That's all I can say. It's just simple and straightforward. It's racism.
Because everyone says, oh, you're not going to make it because you're brown. Everyone says it to you. Even I've been asked, oh, are you sure you even play? Are you sure you're not wasting your time? There's brilliant players, they're just not given a chance.
Definitely.
They're not given a chance. Why? Well, how come they're given a chance in cricket, but when it's football, there's a totally different aspect?
And all we want is a level playing field. And when that day happens, and I know things are happening slowly, but when that day happens, then you will see the Asian generation.
It just seems like the South Asian man is fighting the fight that black minority players were fighting years ago. You know, here are 2 guys of blatant and obvious talent. One lad, Joe, he's the captain of district teams, county teams, every club team he's been at, yet he'll sit there at 18 years of age and tell me he's got no chance in football. I find that utterly astounding. They just face a brick wall. How can you have such an untapped resource just through prejudicial discrimination?
As I learn more about English football's racial problems, I'm keen to get some perspective and to see how they compare to other countries. So I'm visiting Poland before it hosts the European Championships. I'm heading to the city of Krakow to check out the fierce derby match between Wisła Krakow and Cracovia.
There's been well-documented problems with racism over here in Poland. I'm going on a tour of the Wisła Krakow and the Cracovia neighbourhoods to try and find all this anti-Semitic graffiti that I've heard so much about.
Graffiti I've been warned about, quite easy to understand.
A few hours before kick-off, the Cracovia fans gather in the centre of the city for a police escort to Wisła's ground.
It's really starting to heat up now. All the fans are lighting flares as we're coming down the street and letting off noise bombs. It's getting very interesting, very interesting. Especially when you're in a minority of one.
Before going into the stadium, I catch up with a local police spokesman.
Do you think that Polish football has a problem with racism and anti-Semitism?
Myślę, że to nie jest problem, ponieważ mimo iż często zdarza się, że są używane takie słowa jak na meczach, które mogą to sugerować, to w rzeczywistości w naszych zdarzeniach nie notujemy zwiększonej ilości napaści na obcokrajowców czy na osoby innego wyznania, innej orientacji seksualnej czy po prostu z innych krajów.
So do you think I'll hear any racist or anti-Semitic chanting in here tonight?
Ciężko mi powiedzieć, tu bardziej już chodzi o taką rywalizację pomiędzy nimi jako już grupami. I raczej ostatnio to były raczej wyzwiska pomiędzy klubami, aniżeli rasistowskie przyśpiewki.
However, soon after kick-off, a black Cracovia player is targeted by a minority of the home fans.
There were definite monkey chants for the number 10 for Cracovia when he got the ball. There's no police inside the place. Look at this. No one's going to report monkey chanting here.
Then just before half-time, trouble kicks off in the stands. Later, some of the home supporters taunt their rivals.
Coming to this game today and hearing a black player on the pitch racially abused, monkey chants, is just shocking. It's the first time I've ever physically encountered racial abuse in a football ground. I find it utterly incomprehensible. It goes back to 70s and 80s and days that my dad talks about.
My experience in Poland has shown how much has been done to kick overt racism out of English stadiums. But it's also highlighted that anti-Semitism in the English game is rarely talked about.
There was a word beginning with N that some football fans used to shout at players.
Last year, the charity Kick It Out released this film to highlight how freely the word Yid is used around football, in reference to Tottenham Hotspur's Jewish following.
For some reason, a lot of fans still shout this word, and it begins with Y.
What they're chanting is a racist word for Jews, the Y word.
I'm meeting its producer, David Baddiel.
Thank you so much for letting us into your house, David.
A Jewish comedian and writer.
Why did you launch your Y word campaign? What was that focused on?
experience of being a Chelsea fan, over the years, I got very used, and me and my brother, who are both Jewish, got very used to the fact that whenever the Spurs play us, or indeed when there's any mention of Spurs, they start singing anti-Spurs songs. And those anti-Spurs chants are often built around the word Yiddo and associated anti-Semitic chants like Spurs are on their way to Auschwitz. And I've always hated it. I've always thought it's incredibly uncomfortable for me and any other Jew who might be a Chelsea fan, and also I can't bear the fact that it's sort of like gone on as if it's kind of acceptable when we're supposed to have a zero tolerance attitude towards racism on the terraces. As it is, we just part with it. In the 70s, Spurs suffered anti-Semitic racism. That led to them adopting the word Yiddo as a badge of honour. And the problem with that is most Spurs fans aren't Jewish, so they don't really have a right to reappropriate that word in that way. What you're talking about is if you imagine that there was a club in Brixton, that's how that existed in the 70s, and because it existed in Brixton, they started being called the niggers by racists in the 70s, and it was a mainly white club, so they embraced the term, and now they're still out there singing. Imagine it. Imagine there's a white, mainly white stadium shouting nigger or nig army, and they think positively. That club would be shut down tomorrow. By yesterday, exactly. That's the point, and this is what's happening at Tottenham Hotspur. That is what's happening when they sing Yid Army. It's non-Jews using a race-hate word for Jews in their minds positively.
Do you feel that clubs have an appetite to really challenge anti-Semitism?
A little bit more than they did after the film. There was a specific problem with Spurs, which is that they knew that their fans would react against any outlawing of that word on the terraces, and they were keen to suggest that the word itself was technically not a racist word, so we're not going to stop our fans chanting it. And obviously this is all bullshit. What they really mean is we don't know how to stop our fans chanting it. And I understand that's difficult, but that is the truth. Everything else is, bollocks. I've just been saying to my brother, who we did this film with, we're on our way to Chelsea, I think it's got better. I was saying to him, I think it's got better. I think actually the film's had some impact, and I think we won't hear such bad racism. And literally at that moment, I heard some people chanting, I'd rather be a Paki than a Yid, and I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's had no impact at all.
Apart from anything else, racist chanting is against the law.
While supporting all efforts to kick anti-Semitism out of football and recognising the sensitivity of the word Yid, Tottenham argue that its fans' use of this word does not justify the deliberately offensive abuse of some opposing fans. I set out on this journey after John Terry was charged with racism in a criminal court and stripped of the England captaincy. Although Terry would later be cleared of all charges, I've discovered so much else about my industry.
Obviously I'd heard of these different problems of discrimination and racism within football, but I didn't realise how far they went. The problems that I'm seeing as we delve into this about anti-Semitism, going from talking to my dad about things in my own life I wasn't even aware of, to the parts of our game, especially at grassroots level, where these problems they really are big barriers for guys to get over.
And do you think you should have known more about them as the PFA chairman?
This is something I've been asking myself, because as chairman of the Players' Union, I would expect myself to have a real understanding of what's going on in the game, and if these are problems that are stopping lads from getting into the professional side of the game, then it is definitely something that I should be aware of.
There is one undeniable racial barrier in football: the big jobs. I'm one of around 25% of current players who are black. So how come there are only 3 black managers out of 92 professional clubs?
A deflection, and it's an easy goal for John Barnes. Going to his left, and still Barnes. That's a fabulous individual goal.
John Barnes is one of England's greatest ever footballers. Despite suffering shocking racial abuse as a player, he won numerous trophies with Liverpool and nearly 80 caps for England.
Just like Janice, please.
But after this glittering career on the pitch, he struggled to find work as a manager. Today he's leading the fight to get more black people into positions of power off the pitch.
Passive racism is an unconscious feeling that you have based on what you have been told. If I was white, I would be a passive racist because of all of the images and all of the rhetoric and all of the literature that I've read about black people.
I'm meeting John at the International Slavery Museum in Liverpool, near his home.
Becoming again without doubt.
Sacked from his first job as manager after just 8 months, John waited over 8 years for his next job.
Do you believe that a white manager would have had to wait so long for his next appointment?
Well, first of all, I think that white managers are given longer when you get a job.
Right.
Longer to fail.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you lose a couple matches, you're out. Because it's almost as if they don't really believe in you in the first place, but they've given you the job. And then when you're not successful straight away, it's like, well, that's what we thought anyway, so here we go. Rather than stick with him, either from the point of view of being given time by the fans, by the players, by the hierarchy. And of course, to get back in, it's always easier if you're white to get back in as well.
How do you prove that?
You can't, because when you have an owner of a football club who owns the club, you can't tell him, A, who he has to interview, and B, even if he has to interview you, he doesn't have to give you the job, so you can't prove it.
How do you explain the lack of black managers then? What do you think it's down to?
Well, I always look at racism in two ways. Overt racism, which was obviously the way that it was 30 years ago, where everybody's doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And passive racism, which is what we see now, whereby we don't see lots of people doing it, but people still feel that way, but you can't prove it. Now, the problem we have is that a chairman may say, I'm not giving him the job, not because he's black. Yeah? I'm not giving him the job because I don't think he's good enough. But then if he was asking himself, why don't I think he's good enough? It would be because he's black.
Right.
But that's in the subconscious. And that is where the passive racism comes in, which a lot of people have, based on their perception of the intellectual capabilities of black people generally.
Talking with John was really interesting. He's adamant that the lack of black managers in football just reflects the lack of black people in senior positions in society. But in delving into this topic more, it's made me realise that we have a ready-made talent pool here to promote into management positions. We need to be doing more about this as an industry, proactively as well, even if that does mean introducing quotas so that every club has to interview a certain number of black or ethnic minority individuals for each position that is available, then it's a start.
Near my club, there is a memorial to Walter Tull, one of the first black professional footballers to have played in Britain.
You know, Black Britain in the 1900s, not only did he become a professional footballer and break down those barriers, but the first commissioned black officer and went to war for his country. That's utterly astounding. It really is quite sobering to think about the difference in the plight that Walter Tull would have had, his experience playing for Northampton back in 1911, and then mine now in 2012, you know. I am quite ignorant to it all, you know, to the plight of the individual black man in and around the nation today. I'm learning every day. Every person that I talk to is opening my eyes, opening my mind to a completely different side of life. Completely different.
I'm wondering what people outside of my industry think of its racial problems, so I'm meeting a leading anti-racism campaigner.
Because I think Madonna's doing a lot for the country, because when she got David, she donated 1.5 million to the orphanage he came from. And then other people criticise that and say, well, what she's actually done is gone to Africa and buy a black child for £1.5 million. And someone said to me, surely you find that offensive? was like, not really. I find it exciting because I've got 2 black kids at home. Around, you know, places in South London.
Ava Vidal is an established comedian and also patron of the charity Show Racism the Red Card.
I know that you're interested in football and that. What do you see from the outside?
When it comes to racism, there's a massive, massive culture of denial. And I think it's worse in football. When you're watching the game, especially when you're watching an international game, very often the commentators just really upset me. Just the way that they speak about African players. And a lot of these African players actually play in Europe, but all of a sudden when they're representing an African team, very often you'll hear them described as naive. And I find that that's just an extension of a stereotype that exists outside football, that black people are just pure brute strength, and we're fit and strong, but we're simple in the mind.
This is something that John Barnes alluded to when we were talking to him, how this unconscious racism is in society, not just football.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that football's reflective of society, or do you think it's different to society?
I think football is reflective of society. The fact that football does transcend class, colour, you know, religion, creed, whatever, I think it should be pioneering things when it applies to race, which they're not doing. And they're not doing it because they're comfortable. And they're comfortable because nobody's really objecting. I remember speaking about John Terry on stage, and they were just racially abusing me and go, "We love John Terry." And they just started the whole way through going, "Chelsea, Chelsea." And I was like, "Do you know what? See ya."
Yeah.
And I just walked off. And then it's like, "Hey, she didn't do her cert. That's not fair. We paid to see that." I was like, "Well, I don't get paid to tolerate that."
I want to put Ava's views to some big-name English black players. But with John Terry's historic trial looming, it's not proving easy to get them to talk about racism within the game.
I was just wondering if you know, I thought that because I was chairman of the Players' Union and a fellow professional, that lads would be far more comfortable in taking up the offer of a platform with which to voice their views. But, you know, even though people really want things to change, it seems that no one wants to take up the mantle themselves. And I got hold of a current England international and asked him to take part. And he was reluctant to, and he sent me an email back saying, "I believe it might hinder me getting into the squad if the FA catch wind of it, funny as that might sound." It's seeming to me no one wants to rock the boat. Rightly or wrongly, these guys think it was going to have an effect on their career.
Then at last I get a breakthrough.
It's been really hard to get any big-name Premier League English footballers on the film, but one's agreed to talk to me now, so I'm going to go and meet him.
Jermaine Genius has been a Premiership star for 10 years. Currently at high-flying Tottenham Hotspur, he's also played over 20 times for England.
25, I think. Why do you think some black players are so reluctant to talk about racism in the game?
Racism's a sensitive issue, and I think you do have to be quite articulate to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It can be quite easy to be your points to be misconstrued, especially when you're coming from footballers, because people listen and, you know, their views are magnified. You know, it's like, you know, say one thing and the world knows. You've seen it on Twitter.
Have you ever experienced racism in your career?
Yes, yeah. Mainly across Europe when I've been playing for England, though.
Okay.
I'll probably honestly say I haven't received any in England at all.
Okay. So what kind of forms did that come across in those games?
Monkey chants, you black this, you black that, you name it. I think in England, done a good job of kind of stamping out a lot of racism in football, although it's still there, you know, there's no denying that, and I don't foresee the day that it won't be there. You know, what needs to be done is just more people saying what they actually feel rather than being scared to actually go out there and make their points be known.
Yeah.
You know, on racism, it's an issue, simple as that, and we need to crack down on it, and we can use football in a positive way.
for whatever reason.
I bring up the funding of Kick It Out, football's best-known anti-racism charity, who I sometimes do work for.
The campaign, Kick It Out, runs on an annual budget of less than £500,000 a year. Is that enough?
I know it's not. Yeah, I have my own charity back in Nottingham, which obviously I know how much work these charities take and how hard it is to run, and I didn't know that that was your budget, and I think that you do very well on that. And given the fact of the amount of money the Premier League earns, I think the Premier League's just been awarded, what, 3.1 billion? A mil wouldn't hurt, would it?
I'm sure they won't miss it. Suarez got 8 games.
Yeah.
What do you think John Terry should get if he's found guilty of this alleged offence?
The problem that we have is there's a precedent been set now.
Yeah.
So if John Terry gets any more than the 7 or 8 games, then it's going to be looked at as very harsh.
Should it be the same across the board now they've set that precedent, or are some things worse than others?
To me, racism is racism.
Yeah.
Simple as that, plain and simple. There isn't that type of level, that type of level, or that type of level,
Yeah.
in terms of different words you've used or in what context you've used it. If you're racist, you're racist, and all should be dealt with accordingly. If John Terry, you know, is found guilty of that situation, you know, which is still to be sorted out, then I'm sure that he would learn from it.
Okay, very non-committal, brilliant. There's not much to say because it's still an ongoing thing, exactly.
You know, I can't sit here and bear judgment on someone that's not been found guilty.
Absolute pleasure.
No, you too.
Thank you very much.
It's now just days until John Terry's trial, but months since I began looking into football's racial problems. It's time to get the view from the top.
Just on my way to Wembley, headquarters of the FA, England's national governing body in football, speak to them about some of the issues that have struck me over the past 4 months.
Brendan Batson was a pioneering black player back in the 70s. These days, he's the FA's leading advisor on racial issues.
Well, I'll get straight to the point. There's 25% of our players in football in England are black. Why are these numbers not represented in the positions of real authority and decision in football?
I've been asked that question so many times, Clarke. I really don't have the answer. I do think there seems to be a lack of appetite in employing black players to become coaches and managers. And we see a few years ago we had about 4 or 5 black managers in the Football League. We don't see those numbers anymore. We've got 3, 1 in the Premiership obviously, but just on numbers we're going backwards. This is going to be a long-term project. We need to see more black coaches getting higher qualifications and then being given the opportunities to work within mainstream football.
One current England player told me that he thought speaking out about racism in football would directly affect his selection chances for the Euros. What do you say to that?
I think that's a nonsense. I think that wouldn't be the case. So I would say to any player, if they've got something to say, black or white, come forward and say it. Because without that, we can't move the process forward.
We've done so much to get overt racism out of our game. But what I've heard about is the covert racism. You know, the innuendo, the glass ceilings. Do you believe that we do enough to really go out hell for leather against racism?
We should be proud of what's been achieved over the years. But yes, you know, we want to keep progressing. I know from my own experiences that, you know, revolutions are a thing of the past. So you have to take things very, very slowly. It is a conservative sport, but it needs a current crop of players to tell us what they want and how they want to see these anti-racism campaigns develop.
Finally, John Terry's day in court arrives and all eyes are on him.
His reputation at stake. The Chelsea star...
England footballer John Terry has appeared in court accused of racially...
John Terry denies the charge, but the prosecution read out in court...
After a 5-day trial, Terry is cleared of racially abusing an opponent. Whilst John Terry's been found innocent of the charge against him, I really think that this trial has brought the whole issue of racism front and centre once again. And that's given us a real opportunity to combat all the racial issues that I've come across while making this film. And it's not just one person's sole remit to solve all these problems. We all need to do more. The clubs, the authorities, and especially the players. And that means me especially being chairman of the Players' Union, because I've realised that I've been part of the problem because I didn't fully understand the reality out there. And I've learnt a lot about my identity. I've learnt a lot about the different issues that are affecting the game. And hopefully that'll give me a new purpose in trying to help move things forward.
You had loads to say, like Christopher on Facebook. Football cannot be racist. Football is a thing. The governing bodies, the administrators, the managers, the players, the fans, and the commentators can be racist. On Twitter, Ben says, shows that there is racism within football, but how do you define a sport as racist? Gavin says, the colour of your skin should not stop you fulfilling your dreams. And Matthew tweets, Clarke Carlisle showing exactly what is wrong with a beautiful game. Real eye-opener on what is going on. You can go online to the BBC Three website to have your say on our Facebook page or Twitter. And if you want to have your say about the Olympics, listen up to Jake now.